Yup, we're doing an analysis for a dog, but not just any dog, the bestest, goodest dog of them all. Koromaru, for being a literal dog, is a pretty great character in all honesty, and is easily the best mascot for the Persona series, besides Aigis if you want to put her into the discussion. While his character arc is a very low-key one and doesn't contribute much to the core narrative, he's just a goated dog, like come on now, there's no way you can hate him. So in this video, we'll be going over his growth as a character, and as always, I'll also be giving additional context by going in detail about the mythology and reasoning of his persona and arcana as well. I don't want to take too much of your time, so let's go ahead and get into the background of Koromaru and learn more about him. And if you end up enjoying this video, consider dropping me a like and a subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and I'll give you a virtual cookie. Here you go. Koromaru is a Shiba Inu based off the famous dog from Japan named Hachiko. Their stories are basically the same, where Hachiko, after the passing of his guardian Ueno, would wait for him by the train station they would frequent together. His loyalty and love for Ueno was infectious to those around him, and people would eventually begin to give him food and treats as he waited. Of course, since he passed away, he would be waiting forever more or less. Over time, as the story of Hachiko spread across Japan, he became a symbol of loyalty and faithfulness to the country, and after his death on March 8, 1935, his legacy would live on. There were statues and annual ceremonies put in place to celebrate the life he lived. Koromaru, as I mentioned, is almost identical to the story of Hachiko. Koromaru's master, who was a priest at the Naganaki Shrine, passed away roughly 6 months ago from Koromaru's first appearance, and every day after his passing he would return to the shrine waiting for him, but he would never see him again. This aspect of Koromaru is the main reason he was given the Strength Arcana for his persona. The Strength Arcana represents things such as power, energy, action, courage, magnanimity, as well as success and honor. Every one of these points represents Koromaru 100% perfectly. Koromaru is one hell of a strong dog, the strongest in the Persona series at the very least. He's got high amounts of energy, he takes action to help people and care for people, he has courage to fight against literal demons more or less, he's noble and generous, and he's always striving for success and has honor. There is no other arcana that could represent him better because Koromaru as a person, or dog I mean, does have a character arc. But since his growth happens mostly off screen, having this arcana be chosen for him shows that while he's not perfect, because no one is, he has a strong will and conviction of his own from the very start. That's about all we need to cover for the backstory section of Koromaru's character. It's quite straightforward and self-explanatory, so let's go into his one and only persona, that being Cerberus. But hold on, you might have wondered something about Koromaru this entire time. How come he's the only major character, besides Shinji of course, to not awaken to an ultimate persona? Well, that's because Cerberus is his ultimate persona. You see, before we even meet Koromaru, he's already had the largest portion of his character arc occur. He's dealt with death, which if you've seen my other analysis videos is the main breaking point for characters to evolve as people. And once he puts his life on the line to fight against the shadows trying to attack the shrine and himself, that's where his newfound resolve occurred right then and there. The very second we see him in a major story section. He wants to fight to protect S.E.E.S, who have saved and helped him just as his guardian had, which is why he had no qualms to join the team in the fight. Koromaru is a lot smarter than people think, so it's not like he was forced to join. He could have dipped out and S.E.E.S couldn't have done anything about it, so him staying and being there for everyone was his own decision. Through Aigis, who for some reason can speak dog, this aspect of his character, as well as the ones previously mentioned, are elaborated upon, but they aren't too important, so I won't go over them in this video. Now that I've explained why he only has one persona, let's go back to the main topic at hand, which is Cerberus. Cerberus in Greek mythology is the Hound of Hades that guards the gate to the underworld, also known as Tartarus, and attempts to keep the dead from escaping. Besides the fact that he has the best boss theme in Devil May Cry 3, he's a very commonly used figure in mythology, mostly because he's a part of one of the most famous mythologies, that being his capture by Heracles. This story is pretty interesting from the perspective of Persona 3's narrative, and if you listen to all of the figures involved, it becomes clear how this is the case. In one depiction of the myth, before Heracles traveled to the underworld to capture Cerberus, he traveled to Athens and came across the son of Orpheus. After that, he received help from Hermes and Athena to be his guides in the underworld. There are a few different tellings on how Heracles actually managed to capture Cerberus, but either way, after capturing him, Heracles paraded Cerberus through Greece, and in one account of the story, Juno complained about Heracles doing so. Once Heracles had shown that Cerberus had been captured, he escaped on his own and returned to the underworld. That's more or less it for the mythology I'd like to cover, but it is quite interesting how Juno, Hermes, Orpheus, and Athena are somehow indirectly involved in the myth regarding Cerberus. Now, how does any of this actually apply to Koromaru? Well, it's pretty on the nose. Koromaru joins the fight against the Dark Hour and the Shadows to defeat Tartarus and the Underworld, so he's basically taking the power and concept of Cerberus and flipping it upside down. Instead of making sure the lost souls of the Underworld can't escape in the way Cerberus in the myth does, Koromaru does it in a positive way by defeating Shadows and advancing up the labyrinth to save the lost souls. He's the Hound of Hades, but honorable and noble, basically. Alright, we got the three-headed doggo and the doggo himself covered for the most part, so now we can get into the main narrative section of this analysis. And unsurprisingly, this will be the shortest analysis yet because, you know, he's a dog. June 20th in-game is when you come across Koromaru, and the backstory I talked about before is revealed, and Fuka has a small inkling that Koromaru has a persona, but dismisses it because it seems bizarre, which is understandable. On July 29th, during the Dark Hour, Akihiko while on a walk comes across an injured Koromaru, who just finished defeating a shadow on his own, showing he's had his persona for at least a little while at this point, and it also shows his strength and bravery. About a week or so after this, and after getting him the medical care he needed, Koromaru is given his own specialized evoker and joins S.E.E.S in the fight against the Shadows for the reasons I mentioned earlier during the backstory. He fights by putting a knife into his mouth and slashing shadows with it, which is pretty fucking dope. After joining S.E.E.S, fighting with everyone, and finding a new home for himself after his guardian's death, that's honestly the main extent of Koromaru's character, but similarly to Fuka, he does have a good impact on those around him. Akihiko and Junpei mainly respect and love Koromaru for his strength and bravery, Fuka and Yukari feel the same way about his kindness and attitude, and then everyone else more or less falls into the same categories in one way or another. Everyone always points out Koromaru's optimism, tenacity, and stuff like that, and these qualities help the team's morale a lot. Personally, as I was playing the game, I loved having any moments with Koro because he's just so goated, and I think he's the best example of a character that can be as simple as an actual dog and still be amazing. Alright, hold on, let's play a game real quick. Anybody want to take a quick guess on what moment in the story I'll talk about next here? It's definitely not an event I've talked about and will talk about in every single character analysis, so I know this is really hard, so I'll give you a moment to think about it. Yup, you got it. Or at least you probably did. I want to talk about October 4th for a moment. When Shinji joins the party, he and Koromaru automatically have a pretty close connection because Shinji cooks for Koro on the side, and they spend a little bit of time together. So yeah, October 4th hit Koromaru just as much as it did anyone else. I'm not even going to explain what happens on this date at this point, we just know. And something else I know is Koromaru's reaction to the moment breaks my heart every time. The last main thing I'll go over for this analysis, I was not kidding when I said this would be short, is the end of the game as well as his linked episodes since they go hand in hand. Near the end of Persona 3, everyone is given the choice to either give up against Nyx and forget everything about the Dark Hour, or to oppose her and fight to the end. Koromaru doesn't have a scene here because his motivation is set from the get-go. If Koro forgot his memories, he would basically cease to exist. He would go back to waiting by the shrine till the fall came, and would forget meeting everyone. Koromaru's linked episodes are all about his past regarding his guardian, his relationship with people or dogs around him, and his future. I won't go too in detail because it's not very necessary besides the final linked episode. Episode 1 is a bunch of backstory which I've already gone over, so we won't touch on that. Episode 2 shows his courage and bravery once again when he defends kids from a dog. Episode 3 shows his loyalty and nobility when he tries to make peace with a woman he didn't want to stay with. And episode 4 is when he helps the dog from episode 2 find his owner. The final linked episode is what I want to touch on though, because it's when everything comes together. In this one, all of the people you've met and talked to throughout the linked episodes come to the dorm to see Koromaru and talk to him. Since this is after December 31st and the apathy syndrome cases are at an all-time high, they want to make sure he's okay since he's been so good and caring to them. The old man from the first episode that gave the long backstory comes by and gives a sad reality to everything though. At some point not too far in the future, everyone will have to leave the dorm since their role in S.E.E.S will be fulfilled, giving Koromaru no place to call home once again. This makes Koromaru depressed, as it would for anyone really, and this is when the saddest ending to any linked episode happens, at least in my opinion. The protagonist and Koromaru walk to the shrine together and resolve to fight onward for a better future where they can be happy. But then Koromaru makes it known that he would like to stay with the protag after they defeat Nyx. And oh my fucking god, why Atlus? Just why, man? I don't say this in a bad way by any means, by the way. Let me make that clear. But come on, man. We know how this game ends. I don't want to make Koromaru sad. And what makes it even worse is that he gives you the old collar his previous guardian made for him, showing how deeply he trusts you at this point. I cannot believe how amazing they made this moment, considering Koro himself cannot even speak. With 0 spoken words, they made this the saddest linked episode in the entire game to me, and that's truly impressive. What makes this moment even more amazing is that it gives Koro himself an actual motive to be a part of the main dilemma of the answer, which is something that Reload in general did an amazing job of. So as we are all most likely aware, the protagonist dies at the end of Persona 3. And if you weren't aware of that, then I'm sorry. But of course, with the added context of Reload, this makes it a lot more tragic for Koromaru. Your entire future you fought against Nyx for is just gone. He cannot live with the protag anymore. So the question remains, where will he go now? And really, what happened to the protag? That question is what leads to the answer, but until the Reload version of that comes out, I have absolutely nothing to say for Koro in the answer. The only thing I can say is that he and Junpei met before the events of the game, and Koromaru helped Junpei cope with his father issues, so they team up with each other in the fight against Medicine Aegis. But other than that, I got nothing until the remake. What I can talk about is what ended up happening with Koro in the end. He and Ken began living in the old S.E.E.S dormitory together after a bit of time where they promised to live a normal life. That is until the events of Persona 4 Arena Ultimax happen and they're forced to fight once again, but that's another story for another time. And believe it or not, homies, we are done with this character analysis of the uncontested best character in all of Persona history. Extremely long video, I know, but hey, if you made it this far, here's another virtual cookie just for you. You earned it, my friend. All jokes aside though, Koromaru is a great dog character. Maybe one of the better ones I've personally seen in a game, so I had a lot of fun making this one even if there wasn't much to discuss. Koro being based off Hachiko is really great because who doesn't love Hachiko? Plus it actually makes for a really great character in terms of persona. The Strength Arcana, if I had to choose one, would be a great choice for Hachiko if you ask me personally. So seeing it all come to life in Persona 3 is super cool to see. And Cerberus being the persona choice for Koro? Perfection, honestly. And more well thought out than you might think. Koromaru also represents all of the core values of Persona well too. Kind, loving, polite, courageous, all that. And you might not change the narrative of the game too much directly, but as I said, simply being a moral support and a good ally is good enough for this kind of character, and it works really well. His character goes well with the themes of the game too, because he had to cope with death, and his way of coping was finding new friends in a new home. And what is Persona all about? The power of bonds and friendship. I don't think I need to go too much more in depth than that in all honesty. I mean, we know how great Koromaru is. If you made it to the end of this video, drop a comment saying Koromaru is a good doggy to show you're a real one. Or just share your thoughts about Koromaru and his character, that'll work too. And while you're at it, why not consider dropping a like and a subscribe? It helps the channel out a lot, and I truly appreciate all of the support. With that being said, it's been your boy Yandere Gogeta, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out, and have a great day.